Hey there, and welcome to the CMMC Compliance Guide Podcast. I'm Austin.
And I'm Brooke.
From Justice IT Consulting, where we help businesses like yours navigate CMMC and NIST 800-171 compliance. We're hired guns getting companies fast-tracked to compliance, but today we're here to give you all the secrets for free, so if you want to tackle it yourself, you're equipped to do so. Let's dive into today's episode and keep your business on track. Today, we're talking about something that trips up a lot of companies when they're getting ready for their assessment or going through their readiness, and that is evidence. Not all the policies, the plans, or the binders, but the actual proof that you have to show to the assessor when they want to show up and say, all right, show me all of what you got.
Right.
Okay, Brooke. So a lot of companies think that once they've got their binder or their policies or their 300-page Word document of their SSP, that they're covered and they're all set. Why isn't that alone enough?
Yeah, I mean, you go through and look at half the controls, 90% of the controls. Anyway, there's a lot of them that require other things, plans, procedures, logs, stuff like that. So, for instance, what about a visitor log? What about, your logs from your servers and stuff like that? So you got to have evidence showing that you're doing what you say you're doing. You got to have logs to upload from, visitor lists, stuff like that. You've got to have, an example of the logs, for assessors. Not only, you might show a screenshot of a list of logs to say, see, I've been doing it, but, screenshot of the logs or maybe some of the logs themselves. But be careful where you put that, there's, it's going to have SPA in it, or SPD, I guess, in it. So anyway, but the screenshot of those logs, what's in the logs, they want to see that you're capturing. If you say you're capturing username, password, stuff like that, they want to see that. So it's the details, and they want to see the details. If you give them all the details, and not only just the SSP and the policies, but your procedures, your plans, your all your details, or your screenshots, all your logs, everything else, then that goes a long way to making that assessor feel good about your environment and that you're doing what you say you're doing. And that, my friends, goes a long way to your a successful completion of your getting a L2 certification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's not on a honesty policy or
I think it's called trust but verify.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called.
Yep. The honor system, that's what I was looking for.
The honor system? Yeah, it is not the honor system. The honor system is great. Handshakes don't work in CMMC, unfortunately.
Yeah. Speaking of trust but verify, what do assessors want to see whenever you're going through a level 2 assessment as far as evidence goes, more specifically?
Yeah, so they want to see all the details. They want to see the who, what, when, where, and why. Or, well, maybe not the why, but the who, what, when, where. So they want to see, they want to see who performed the action, what the action was, where it was, maybe what computer, what system, and when it was. They want to see all those details and more in the logs, but they want to see those details, right? And so you've got to be able to prove it. Everything in your policies, everything in your plans, you've got to be able to prove that. And so those are the types of things that they're looking for.
Okay, so they need to know the who, the what, the when, the where. But beyond that, what does acceptable evidence actually look like?
Acceptable evidence can and will be a lot of things. It could be screenshots. You got to show that your Intune or your Active Directories, GPOs or settings, or you got to show that those are set right. So screenshots of those. You could show screenshots of permissions, or, you could do reports of permissions. So any reports you do, it'd be good for those to be automated and not manually created. If you can automate those, it's when the assessor shows up and they want a new report run, it's easy to get that report to them real quick if they're automated, or you can run that report, right? If you got to manually create it by running a bunch of commands and coalescing all those CSVs and all that kind of fun stuff, they'll probably take that, but something that you can produce quickly for them is a lot better. So if you have to massage the data a lot, that might turn them off. So just remember that. The logs, logs from your systems, from your SIM, reports from your SIM, stuff like that. You don't have to use a SIM for CMMC, but when you read the audit and accountability section, it's really written for a SIM. So, because really and truthfully, if you don't have a SIM in this day and age, you're looking over all your logs, you're doing yourself a disservice. You really should have a SIM helping you look over those logs. Back in the day, I could look over logs. Way back in the day, I could look through logs and find problems and stuff like that, or look at a network trace and find some problems. But there's so much going on and so much obfuscated these days because of encryption and everything else that it really is impossible for a person to look through those logs on their own and find problems. So have a SIM help you go through those, alert you on things. So, and speaking of alerts, and you might think of tickets. So a ticketing system is a really good thing to have. So some of those tickets where you onboarded a new person or changed somebody's permission or whatever it may be, some of those tickets to say, look, we actually did this. And here's a checklist in that ticket, or maybe your ticket don't have checklists, but just proof showing that you did what you say you did. And by the way, we always we have these conversations with our techs quite a bit. Put detail in the ticket to tell so we can go back and look and see what you did. 6 months from now, a year from now, when we have a similar problem, you go back to look. You don't want to look and say I fixed it. You want to look and see what you did to fix this problem. So same thing with all this. If you're changing somebody's permission, if you're doing whatever, just put some detail in there of what you did, right? So an assessor can look at it and go, oh yeah, so I understand you did X, Y, and Z, and you completed the ticket. So, but those tickets are a ticket system is really good. You can also set ticket systems up to, to request approval. You can also just have a procedure to follow and get that approval from someone and put that in the ticket. But some ticketing systems, a lot of them do have a way to set up approvals to where if it's an onboarding ticket, you create the user. If it didn't come from your security authorization person, then you contact them and you go through that with the ticket. So really that's the kind of things you're looking for, kind of the kind of details. And the assessors are looking for proof that you're doing what you say you're doing and that you're doing it ongoing. That's part of your business. It's not just, oh crap, the assessor's here, let's get all this done, right? And that's what CMMC is about, is management and ongoing management and monitoring.
Absolutely. You said way back in the day, when you could look at logs, I was going to give you a hard time and say, I didn't know Abacuses had logs.
Well, the Abacus was a log. You could look at it, Right.
So access control can be one of the more neglected areas, especially say in a smaller operation, where typically everyone, someone says, well, everyone wears multiple hats and we can't really restrict data, to, Susie or Bill or, Bob. So it can be kind of one of the areas that red flags can be spotted. So what typically goes wrong here? And can you go into a little bit more on access control and how that relates to evidence?
Sure. And I will expand a little bit on one of the things you said about, a small shop, everybody wears a lot of hats, and we're a small shop, everybody wears a lot of hats. So, I always challenge folks a little bit and say, look, Do you let all your employees see each other's pay scales? Do you let them see each other's term or disciplinary records? Do you let them see personal details like that? Oh, no, we don't do that. Well, in that case, then not everybody needs access to every piece of data, and you can apply that same principle to CUI, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you should apply that same principle to CUI. Not everybody needs to see everything. Least privilege, right?
Mm-hmm.
If those users don't need to see certain data, then you really do need to fix that. You need to have your enclave, have your scope, whatever, however you want to define it, and make sure that you have it least privilege as much as possible. But I completely 1,000% understand, and assessors do, that people wear a lot of hats, and Joe Blow over here might, be a machinist and an accountant,
Mm-hmm.
That's not, we don't really see that very much, but,
No.
they might be a machinist and an accountant, or they might be, they'll perform multiple roles,
Front desk or accounting does not necessarily need to access drawings. Or
yes, they might need to see FCI, but not CUI.
Yep.
So, figure out how to split apart your FCI and CUI to where, to where those accounting users, for instance, and HR users, and a lot of times those are the same, Sally over here is HR and accounting, so she doesn't necessarily need to see all the specs, make sure those are cordoned off, however, to where she can't see them. Then you've got a very beginning of an enclave or scoping your environment properly. So, but that's in the very beginning. We've talked about what kind of data you have and scoping and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's part of that. But to your point, that's part of access control and deciding who can see what, right? And people wearing multiple hats and all that. So, another thing is along those lines, saying, yes, we've followed the principle of least privilege. Great. How do you do that? Users are not admins, and users can only see what they need to have access to. Great. Show me. Well, how do I show you that? So the point is, you ought to be able to show that you follow the principle of least privilege. You ought to have screenshots. You ought to have evidence that shows. You ought to have your policy ought to explain that, how you do it and how you accomplish it, and then you ought to be able to have screenshots and everything that show how you accomplish least privilege, and the fact that Sally over here in HR can't look at the drawings. Maybe that would be a good piece of evidence. A list of Active Directory user accounts. That's wonderful. That's great. That's a good place to start. But they're going to want to know about all your employees. Have a list of all your employees, who has system access, who doesn't, who has access to CUI, you got to categorize. People are an asset. Okay. And you have to categorize all your assets. You have to categorize them as CUI assets, security protection assets, contractor risk managed assets, out of scope, all that kind of fun stuff. So you've got to classify those assets. You've got to classify the people as well as your computers, as well as your systems. You've got to classify those things. So you got to list out. Sally is out of scope because all she does is QuickBooks and HR, right? So you've got to make sure you do that. It can include your Active Directory user list. That can be part of your evidence, but you also need to have that full list of all your employees to gauge against. And again, ticketing systems. Ticketing system is a really good thing to have. We think that way because we're an MSP and we live in our ticketing system all day long. So, actually we live in a PSA, which does a lot of stuff for us. Part of that is ticketing. PSA is Professional Services Automation. It's kind of an ERP tool, Enterprise Resource Planning, but it's kind of an ERP tool for MSPs like us. So, but a ticketing system is a real good thing to use. That way, when you When somebody requests access to something, onboarding, offboarding, and we mentioned this a while ago, but onboarding, offboarding, change of access, anything like that, you open a ticket. What is it for? And then you record your actions, and then you close a ticket. And then when the assessor comes, there's your list of evidence, and you can export those tickets, and quarterly, annually, however you want to do it, you can put some of that evidence in, hopefully a GRC tool, but maybe a spreadsheet with a folder and a bunch of table of contents file. But you can save that evidence so they can look and see that, yes, you've been doing this, right? So those are the kind of things that are good pieces of evidence for assessors. And I'll go back to the screenshots again. Screenshots of settings. Screenshots are good, but they're very much a point in time. So if you do a good time to do some of those screenshots is if you perform a quarterly ticket for vulnerability scanning, for instance, and vulnerability and security scanning to check on inactive accounts and vulnerabilities that need to be managed and all that kind of fun stuff. That is a good time to capture some of that evidence.
Absolutely. Keep it current.
Keep it current, yes.
Yeah. So not to take us too far off the evidence talking point and down another rabbit hole, but I'm going to do it anyway. Talking about the, multiple people wear multiple hats and everyone accesses everything, can be often a roadblock or barrier that we see a lot of times, in say a small machine shop or mid-sized machine shop or really any other small mid-sized company. But it it also works in your benefit,
Yes, it does.
Multiple ways. The first big one is that by giving people limited access, for example, Susie in accounting, if we're taking her out of scope and say she doesn't have access to COI, then she's not part of the level 2 assessment, right? Or in terms of scope.
Correct.
Goes. So
Correct.
You're kind of limiting the blast radius and the number of things that can go wrong. So really, it's a good strategy from an assessment perspective and limiting your liabilities to keep the scope as small as which is reasonably possible and that fits in your operations, that doesn't cause problems of efficiency, but it helps out
it
a
does.
lot.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise your entire operation would have to be assessed. And, just the more that scope grows, the more your potential problems do as well, right?
Right.
And the people you have to make sure are read in to do everything properly and right and are going to get assessed. So that's one. The next thing I was going to say is, kind of a cousin to that point I'm trying to make. And it's, if you have some owners, that are, if you're put in charge of the compliance or IT or, kind of piece and they want you to get this done, but they don't necessarily want to be burdened by all the things that the compliance requires at the same time, so they put you in charge of getting compliance done, but they don't want to have MFA and they don't want to do this and they don't want to do that. And then take them out of scope.
Take them out of scope. That way they don't have to worry about any of that stuff and they can't access any of the data that matters.
Yeah. So,
Austin knows something about that, by the way.
Yeah. Hey, absolutely. Absolutely.
We have scoped Austin out. He doesn't have access to any of our critical data. So,
which I'm happy about. So, also means y'all can ask me to do less things. So
this is true.
Yeah.
This is true. Austin's been shooting for a way to not have to do be involved in anything technical related, and he finally got his wish. Not recently. He's been scoped out, but he got his wish.
I'm shooting for margaritas on the beach, and scoped out, here soon. So that's my ultimate end goal,
Yeah, I think I did something wrong. I need to shoot for that too.
So, just kidding. but no, that's so, if you have owners that want this done, but that aren't necessarily buying into the fact that they also have to do something, then you can, you have to get the compliance. You have to be compliant, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you're going to lie, so that conversation can be made with them, that, hey, we're limiting our liability here in terms of scope and what has to be assessed. And, if you don't want to do all this crap, that is a pain in the rear, then don't. We'll just kind of scope you out. Obviously the owner has to have enough trust in the team they put together and everything.
They absolutely do because yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, and there's there's ways to hedge, any risk of, for an owner that, break glass scenarios and whatnot that, makes that, from their perspective, a little less, concerning. But yeah, it's typically the best way, to do it. And it's kind of a win-win. This is the most common thing that we see, one of the most common things that we see. Typically someone's been tasked with it, but, not everyone wants to jump on board with all the burdens of day-to-day tasks or cybersecurity or, that you have to do. So,
right. Yeah. Absolutely.
You had brought up SIMs, seams, however you want to say it. People like to say things different ways earlier. It's not required, but certainly helps out.
I'd like to point out the correct way to say it is SIM. So,
SIM. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
You're going on record. Yeah.
We'll start a discussion, and people, I'm sure, post their passions about whether it's SIM or SIM.
We'll just go ahead and put your physical address, mailing address right here, where you can send all the hate mail if you disagree. I'm kidding. Yes. So I'd have to agree with you, but so the point is, there's logging and monitoring is a heavy burden when it comes to CMMC compliance, and it can stress people out. So what are assessors looking for when it comes to logging and monitoring? How do they want to be shown the evidence that it's actually being done in a way that is satisfactory?
Sure. So, just look at the controls. You have to define, and define means you have to write down. So most of this is going to go in your policy about, what are you logging? What sources are you logging? What kind of events are you logging? What kind of content is going into that? Is it username? Is it computer names? Is it file name? Is it dates? Probably yes to all that. But anyway, what kind of things are you logging? Where are you logging it? What happens with it? Do you have a SIM in place? Are you using a SIM? And no, it does not say, are you, you have to use a SIM. But as we talked about a minute ago, or a SIM, but, as we talked about a little while ago, it really is written to say, you should probably put a SIM in place. So you could do it without one, but in my estimation, in my opinion, is that you can't really do good security without having a SIM in place these days.
There's just too much dang data you have to look at.
Too much noise, way too much noise, right? So you need something to help you look through that, pop alerts and stuff like that. So in any case, you have to define everything that goes into it. So the assessor is going to want to see what you defined, and they're going to want to see that you're capturing from all the sources you said you are. They want to see that if you said the usernames, computer names, and file names are all in there, they want to see that that's in there. They want to see that those failed logon alerts. Who knows? Maybe you fail some logons, so you can capture those, or something like that. But they want to see that those alerts are or that those logs are working. Right. And then, part of this is reviewing the logs or reviewing, the events and stuff like that. So they want to see that you're doing that. They want to see that all this is happening. So you have to show some evidence that you're reviewing these. Because if you say, Scouts, what is Scouts Honor? I don't remember what Scouts Honor is. Yeah, there you go.
I don't
Scouts
know. It's been
Honor.
years.
Yeah, it's been years. Austin here was an Eagle Scout. So if you're an Eagle Scout, don't you remember that stuff forever?
I don't know.
Not.
I mean,
in any case,
too many margaritas on the beach.
Yeah,
I guess,
there you go.
So,
yeah. So they don't say, they don't take, Scouts Honor. I promise I do this. They want to see evidence that you review that stuff. They want to see evidence that it generates alerts. If you say it generates an alert and a ticket, they want to see that. So those can all be part of your evidence. So they want to see good, strong evidence. They want to see, not only the fact that you do have a bunch of logs, but the content of those logs. If you say you raise alerts and tickets, they want to see that. So they want to see, again, they want to see proof that you're doing what you say you're doing, that it's monitored and managed.
Okay, so logging and monitoring those logs is obviously a real pain in the rear. But so is configuration and change management. And,
yes.
If you've had your, hands in the cookie jar when it comes to IT and moving things around and fixing things and responding to fires all day, and maybe hands in the cookie jar is the wrong metaphor to use there, but, gotten your hands dirty, I guess, from an IT perspective, that things happen fast and it's hard to keep track of things. And, but compliance demands it. So, how system changes and configurations that all needs to be tracked and kept track of for compliance and for assessors. So, how does that come into evidence, and what do they want to see?
Sure. So, again, back in the day, we used to use just a spreadsheet. Here's my change management system. It's a spreadsheet, and these are the changes that I make, right? But what CMMC requires is you have a baseline, and then you start from a baseline. You have your security configurations and all that kind of fun stuff, and then you track any changes, and that you test those changes before they go out to the wider system, right? Or take into account security implications, all that kind of fun stuff. So they want to see that happens. Great way to do that is I'll refer back to a ticketing system. If you have some sort of ticketing system or a PSA, MSPs are going to have that PSA that we talked about. So like Autotask, and I think Ninja has one, ConnectWise, and there's a million of them out there. Jira is one. So there's a bunch of ticketing systems. Pick one, it can work. So of course you got to make sure what data you put in there, and it's okay to put that data in there. So that said, use that ticketing system, and anytime there's change management, make that ticket a change management ticket. You can a lot of ticketing systems. There could be different kinds of tickets. A problem ticket, an issue, a recurring issue, a change management, something like that. So move, add, change kind of ticket. So just make sure you create that ticket, and make sure you go through all the steps. If you have ticket templates that say, you need to do this, this, and this, then you can check those off as you get those done. Then that's great. So, but you have that ticketing system, you have a way to document that, and you have a way to report on that also if you use a ticketing system. So, but they want to, assessors want to see that proof that you did everything you're supposed to, you did everything you're saying you were doing, that you took the chain, looked at the change that needed to be made. You consider the security ramifications. Maybe you were able to test it beforehand, that you rolled it out, that you verified it doesn't affect any other security, or if it does, for instance, if you have to make a change, update the firmware on a firewall, for instance. If it's one of the firewalls where the FIPS mode is dependent upon firmware versions, possibly in that ticket. And that ticket would also kick off a operational POAM, but maybe that ticket you've got to, for security reasons, you've got to install that new firmware, and so you install the new firmware. It's got to come out of FIPS mode to do that. You verify that all your security settings are still set, with the exception of FIPS mode, and then you have an operational POAM after that, and you have evidence that you created that. Yes, I created a operational POAM item that says that once we have FIPS mode available for this appliance again, we'll implement FIPS mode, right? So as long as you document all that, then that's what you need. If it's in a spreadsheet, great. If that's the way you're doing change management and change management tracking, however you want to, I guess, I guess tracking is management. So anyway, however you want to do change management, if it's a spreadsheet or whatever, that's fine. It's got to be easy for the assessor to look through and understand. Ticketing system is great, like I said. So it manages all that stuff for you and is arguably better than a bunch of different spreadsheets for different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you had hit on a point that I think is important to not dive too much in the weeds, but just highlight for a second, and that's SPD, and so and the with the configuration management and changes. If you are using a ticketing system, say one that's off the shelf or a cloud version, or your IT provider is, then a lot of that information in terms of configuration management can be in there, but you have to be, like you said, careful about what goes in there. So, for example, I like usernames and passwords is obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can't be in your ticketing system, especially if it's not compliant. If it's cloud, it has to be FedRAMP, so you'd need a password vault system that's FedRAMP, right? For example, other things I'm guessing, you make sure I'm getting in the right ballpark here, is IP addresses, actual configuration files. For example, if you're an export of a Sonic or firewall config file or something, you wouldn't want to attach that to the ticketing system. You'd want to store that somewhere that CUI could be, or well, where SPD, I guess, could be stored, because that's what it would be categorized as. But it needs to be, protected like the CUI that it's protecting, because that's what SPD is. So you can do all those things, use a ticketing system. But you have to be careful about the actual data, and you have to be real specific and break it down, because if that stuff is in there, that is a big issue. So the generalities of it can be there, but the very specificities can't be.
Yeah, that all goes back to scoping again. Yep. So what kind of data do you have, and where do you keep that data? What is your data flow diagram? What systems are in scope? What are not? Are they on-premise or are they cloud? All that kind of fun stuff. So it goes back to scope. The short answer is if you have an on-premise ticketing system and you do put SPD in there, and it's in scope with everything else for your network, then you're probably good there. But if you have a cloud ticketing system, then it's SPD. Is that SPD in there? And can you get for instance, a customer responsibility matrix, a CRM? Or a shared responsibility matrix is the actual term most people use until the government changed what they use. But can you get that from your vendor? And can you get a CRM that is based on NIST 800-171 or CMMC, right? Can you get one based on that, or is it just some general responsibility matrix? So they've got an assessor has to be able to map that back to, or you need to do it for them, back to CMMC controls. And if you can't get that responsibility matrix from your vendor, then you probably, and it's not FedRAMP, then you probably don't need to be putting SPD in it, right? Yep. And you probably need to avoid that. So we avoid putting SPD in our ticketing system, and that goes in our documentation system or password manager, whatever it may be, for that. Ours is all in one, but anyway, that's you just need to scope that properly and make sure that whatever you're using can handle the data that compliance wise that you're putting in there.
And again, as we say, all roads lead back to scope.
all roads lead back to scope. That's right.
Okay, let's talk manufacturers. They face some unique challenges in terms of the actual reality of the shop floor and parts being produced from COI, right?
Right.
So what do assessors focus on there, and what should a manufacturer expect?
Well, they're going to want to see that you scoped everything properly. Going back to your scoping question,
I told you
all roads lead
lead
back to
scope.
scoping. So, they're going to want to look at your scope and make sure see that they're not going to go check on things that you said were out of scope and go aha. But if something leads them to that, then they're going to say aha. So, so in other words, they're not looking to fail you. But if Sally Joe says, I use this machine over here to look at my drawings, and they're like, well, I thought you said that was out of scope, and they're like, Sally, shh, be quiet. so those
Which
kind
you
of things.
shouldn't do.
What you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
No,
Do not lie.
Be clear, you should not do. So
Get us in trouble here.
and this all goes back to the scoping question.
Yep.
You should have people that perform the jobs in the room discussing with you. Whether it's a manager or something like that, not just executives and IT people. You should have people that perform some of the jobs in there, so they can go, we don't actually do it that way.
Yeah, we do not like the approach, and we do not take the approach of let's just figure this out at the top and force it down everyone's throats. It's just we get all stakeholders in the room together that have the information how the business actually runs, and then collectively come to a decision on each control, how you're going to solve it, because otherwise you're going to lead to that problem in the assessment.
We always find something when we're talking to people and include people, stakeholders, include people that actually do the job. They always say, well, this is the way we handle it. We actually do it this way. And, the executives or the IT people are like, I had no clue.
What?
So just be aware of that. And they're gonna show up physically, and they're gonna want to see things, right? So, if they walk out on the shop floor and they see a sticky note with somebody's password on a computer, and then they find out that everybody here logs in as Sally Joe because she's the only one that has access to the drawings, that's an issue. That's essentially a shared account, right? Not only is she sharing credentials, but there's a shared account. So that doesn't work. USB storage is another one of those big things. You've got to control those USB sticks, right? So they have to meet certain controls, but one of them is that you have to know they need to be serialized, they need to be labeled, and then you need to control what gets plugged in where. So if you have you can do that through Active Directory as a good technical control to use. You can use programs like Threat Locker. You can control USBs through there. And there's a bunch of other ways to do it, but uncontrolled USBs is a problem, right? Legacy systems that can't be patched. In a typical manufacturer, you're going to have some of these machines that the vendor gave you they didn't give it to you, bought it, and along with the CNC machine or whatever it might be. But you got a computer along with it, and it's Windows XP, for instance, or Windows 7, or maybe even if you're lucky, Windows 10. But if it's out of support and not able to be patched, that's a big issue for you, and it shouldn't be on your network. Right. And you need to figure out a workaround and how to work with that machine and how to scope it properly and all that. So that's a common issue that bites manufacturers. So it works great. We just send our files to it, and then we pull files off of it. It works wonderfully. Well, I'm sure it does, but it's insecure. So those are the kind of things you need to think about, and the kind of things the assessors will notice, right? And I said you need to. I've got a note here about compensating controls. So, I said you need to figure out a way around it. So, if you have some compensating controls in place, that's fine. They need to be defined, and you need to make sure that you're following those, and then you can prove that, right? Those are all good, and the other big thing is network segmentation. Do you actually segment to your network, or do you depend on ACLs, or how do you do that? So network segmentation does a lot of really good things for you. So can do a lot of really good things for you. So those are the kind of things that'll help people out. Like I said, those are common problems with manufacturers, is the out of support machines, the everything on one network, USBs floating around that aren't encrypted and nobody knows where they are, or whose is whose, or what's what. Here's one, we can use it. This kind of thing. It doesn't fly.
So you remember whenever you were younger and your mom would just pull the dinner out of the oven and put it on the table, and if you tried to reach at it, she'd slap your hand and say, it's just out of the oven, it's too hot, you can't touch it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay. Well, can't do that with your evidence, right?
Wow, I think that was a little bit of a stretch, but go right ahead.
I'm trying. I'm committed to it now. So
you are.
Yeah. So my point is just that, there has to be some historical proof that you've been doing what your policies and everything say that you're doing, right?
Yes.
And so if it's all, fresh out the oven and just, a few minutes old.
There it is. I get it now.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Hopefully you get it now.
See, so you got to stick to the act, and you can pull through, so yeah, it can't all be, fresh out of the oven.
Right.
Because, assessors will call BS on that, more or less, right? I mean, there has to be some, history there. And so can you tell us the problem with that?
Sure. It's again, this is CMMC and NIST 800-171 are built for ongoing management and ongoing monitoring. So if your environment has been operating for the last 25 years and you've said since 2018 that we're good to go, and but yet all your evidence is from yesterday, then that throws a lot of questions in there. There could be very valid reasons why it's all from yesterday or 2 weeks ago or whatever it may be. Maybe you just stood it up. Maybe whatever it may be. Maybe all that is true. But if it's been in existence for a long time and you've been doing this work for a long time, they expect to see that work. That evidence. And surely you have some evidence that you've been doing most or some of your controls for a while. If the only tickets you have are from, 2 weeks ago, that you created a new user and you don't have any before that, if all your logs are from 2 weeks ago and no earlier than that, that may be an issue. That's going to raise some questions for the auditor, the assessor. They are assessors.
Broke your own rule there.
They're assessors. They're not auditors. So, but they will. That'll raise some questions for them. So that's why you really need to. Once you get this in place, you really need to start gathering that evidence and have that ongoing, so you can say yes. Scout's honor. We do this, and here's the evidence. So trust but verify. So they want to see that ongoing evidence that you've been doing it.
So, it has to be reasonable for the most part, right? So if everything's new, probably red flag, right? But if you have, pretty good history and everything else, and there's a reasonable explanation for some evidence that is new, then probably not the biggest deal in the world, right?
Right, exactly.
So talked about logging. We talked about the age of evidence. We talked about what form it can take, screenshots, configuration management, all the stuff we've talked about. That's all great and good. But in terms of, the evidence and showing it to the assessor and where we store all this stuff, what does that need to look like? The organization and storage of evidence.
Sure. It can take a lot of forms. It can be however you want it to be, right? There are definitely people that do this in Word documents and spreadsheets, and then a folder with a table of contents for all evidence and the evidence named appropriately. So if you have that, just make sure you're very diligent about, maybe put hyperlinks into the evidence. Maybe you do whatever, but you have to make it easier for you and the auditor. Somebody that doesn't know your system and know what you've been doing, you have to make it easy for them to find all the documents, find all the evidence, and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's great. However, I'm a giant fan of GRC tool because it's a lot easier to keep that stuff together in one spot, have the correct version everybody's looking at. Oh, wait, sorry, we didn't get the right version in that folder. Let me copy it over real quick, or whatever it might be. But if you have GRC tool, all that's in one spot. You can either give the assessor access to it, some like that, or you can export it. A lot of GRC tools will allow you to export out of there in a package to give to the assessor, and that's what some assessors want. So, but GRC tool is a really good way to get all your information in one spot, get it all linked together as it should be. You can have one piece of evidence, and it may apply to, I don't know, 10 different assessment objectives, or several controls, or whatever it might be. It may apply to several different things. And so in a GRC tool, you just create that relationship, and it's good to go. It shows up there. They can see all the evidence. They can see the supporting documentation, and you're good to go. So, big fan of GRC tools. We use FutureFeed. I'll give a shout out here for FutureFeed. It's a really good tool. It is a lot of work, but guess what? CMMC is a lot of work. So it just makes it gives you the ability to fill everything out properly. Right?
It's a tool.
It's a tool, yeah. But it makes it easy to see what needs to be filled out properly. And so, and it gives you guidance and all that kind of fun stuff. Because, some of these things you get, you're doing 10 different things, because nobody's job is just one control, so some of these things you're going to have to go back and think about and look up or whatever. So they have guidance on there that can help you out a little bit. But the whole structure of it and FutureFeed is really good and really conducive to making sure that you get everything in there that needs to be in there for the assessment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And as for everything with CMMC compliance, if you're looking for a silver bullet solution that's going to solve all your woes and just be everything just solved immediately, then you're just, it's not going to happen. So
right.
Yeah, unless you live in some very special use case or something, it's likely not achievable. So everything we're talking about is how to make things a lot easier, how to approach things, simply or with the best mindset. But everything still requires work,
Everything still requires work, and there's a price to it, whether it's labor or dollars. Everything there's a price to everything. So you can have a free solution, but it's going to require some labor. You can, you can use all spreadsheets and Word documents and everything. It'd be a lot of work. You can use a GRC tool. It'd be less work, but you pay for it. So.
Absolutely. So it's probably pretty reasonable, if you've been sitting here listening to us this whole time, that you might be feeling a little overwhelmed, especially if you're small, mid-size, team that is tasked with handling this. And so my question to you is, what would be the best advice that you have for smaller companies that are feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now?
It is easy for it's easy for big companies to feel overwhelmed, but it's very easy for a small company to feel overwhelmed with all this. So, one of the things is make evidence collection a normal part of your operations, make, exporting logs and stuff like that a normal part of your operations. It could take the form of, here comes a ticketing system again. If you have a quarterly ticket to do vulnerability scanning and X, Y, and Z, that's a good time to take a bunch of the screenshots to gather a bunch of that evidence and put them in your GRC tool, or maybe in your folder structure in the appropriate place, giving them a good naming convention, right? So that'd be a good time to do that. But if you have something to help you remember to do all those things and somewhere to record that you did it, say ticketing system, or you can do that in your GRC tool also. But ticketing system in conjunction with the GRC tool really does a lot for you. So if you if you make sure you have something to remind you to do those things, that would be a really good thing for small companies to do. Again, if you use a ticketing system, you can do a lot with that. Schedule recurring tickets that pop up and remind you, oh, hey, it's time for the assessment. Oh, hey, it's time for, our annual review of the security, the SSP. It's our annual time for our annual review of the, to do the risk assessment or whatever it might be. Ticketing system will help you do that. GRC tools can help do that too. They're just not a full-fledged ticketing system. And that ticketing system fills a lot of the holes where a GRC tool won't. So yes, you could use a GRC tool in many cases to do some of this, but ticketing system works a lot better. So if you can implement some sort of ticketing system, again, there's a million out there, from Jira to Autotask to ConnectWise. There's a bunch of them out there. So, and there's free ones. So I guess, is Jira free? I don't really know.
I have no idea.
I just know people use it. I have not actually used Jira. So
been a long time since we looked for ticketing systems.
Yeah,
so.
it has, and we did not set a lot of free ones. So,
No.
If you do this, it helps. It helps remind you to do these things, and you have a place to log it. And it also, if you do follow this and get reminded and finish those tickets, log all that stuff, then that spreads the work out for collecting the evidence, right? What I will tell you is that, when you go through an assessment, it probably is good to go ahead and get them all the evidence. They're going to want to see recent evidence. So if the last time you did this was 3 months ago, they're going to go, yeah, I want to see some recent stuff. So right before an assessment, you'll probably spend a lot of time getting a fresh set of all that evidence, So, and you'll put all that in there, but the effort will be spread out and not and managed through through that ticketing system. So
that's some good advice for someone that might be feeling overwhelmed. But what would you say the biggest takeaway from today is?
The biggest takeaway is to remember that CMMC is not about just having the perfect paperwork, the perfect policies, the perfect SSP. It's about ongoing management, ongoing monitoring, and being able to prove it. If you can prove that you're doing what you say you're doing, you're all your perfect policies, and I put that in quotes because I've never seen a perfect policy, but anyway, all your perfect policies, all your very detailed policies, your very detailed SSP, that's great. But if you need to be able to show that you're doing everything you say you're doing, and that's all your evidence, all your logs, all your everything else. So if all your policies and all your evidence match up, that'll go a long way to showing real world behavior. And then when that assessor shows up and asks Sally Joe, we'll pick on Sally Joe again, Sally Joe, can you show me, where you store your COI? Yes, it's right here in our COI storage location of choice, whatever it might be. It's right here on our file server in this special folder. If it's right here in Prevail or whatever it might be, or GCC High. It's this is right here. Great, So they want to see that those that you've explained what you're doing, that you monitor what you're doing, and that you're actually doing what you say you're doing. Right. So if all those line up, your assessment is going to go swimmingly. It's going to go great. So. And those assessments, if you've got all that documentation ready, and they come out and their questions all line up and they're good, a practice run with your employees might be a good thing to do, just so they don't stammer all over themselves and all that kind of fun stuff. But as long as all that goes well and everything lines up, those assessments really go pretty quickly as far as on site. Right. And as far as dealing with you goes, those go pretty quickly. And because they can look through all that evidence, all your documentation beforehand, and be ready to ask questions and look at things. And then when you show them everything matches up, they're not going to go digging a whole lot deeper, and they'll go on and say everything looks good, right? So those assessments can go pretty quick if you have everything in line.
All right, it's coming about that time towards the end of the podcast where we have a listener question.
All right, that's great.
Yeah. So it is, we received it after episode 43, and it comes from...
I think I remember this one. Go ahead.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. It comes from at Donald Binkley, I believe, on YouTube. And I'm going to try and summarize it the best I can here. So Donald was just hired as a junior admin at a small business and quickly realized he was the only IT person. Then he got hit with, "Have you heard of CMMC?" And he was told just to figure it out. And he's been handling IT operations, security controls, policies, procedures, documentation, and compliance all by himself for about over a year now. He says the overwhelm of that is pretty real, and he feels like they're still a long way off. So the question, I think, is, in your experience, Brooke, have you seen organizations put the responsibility of CMMC Level 2 on one person and have it be sustainable or even potentially pass assessment?
What I will say is, Donald, you're the only person this has ever happened to. This never happens to anybody else, and it's a 1 in a million case. No, I'm just kidding. This happens all the time. And Donald, overwhelm is real, and you are right, and we see it all the time. Companies just don't understand. Leadership just doesn't understand, and they say, I know we got to be compliant with this CMMC stuff to keep our contracts. Mr. IT guy, handle this crap. And the IT guy looks at it and goes, uh-oh, there's a lot to this. So Donald, you're right. There is a lot to it. It is overwhelming, especially if you've just been thrown into IT. And I don't recall how long you've been in IT or anything else, but
I think he's new to it.
New to it. Okay. So, but in any case, it seems like IT people and quality people are the people that get this dumped on, and they go, handle it, go take care of it. And
you're a real go-getter.
Yeah, you're a real go-getter. You've done a great job so far. You wear 10 hats. Why not one more? It's just one more hat, small hat. I got news for you. This is a gigantic hat to wear. CMMC is. So can it be sustainable? Can it be doable for one person? The answer is yes and no. So no, not really specifically for one person to do it. It's not really sustainable. It's not really doable. You will have to get a lot of help. Leadership will have to be involved. They're going to have to expenditure of money. They're going to have to changing the environment. They're going to have to changing the work processes. They're going to have to be okay with all that. And I guarantee you, they don't give you the authority to do all that without asking, right? So leadership is going to need to be involved in this. If you are just getting started in it, expect to go through a lot of learning. The other thing the leadership team should do is make sure that they invest in your education, right? They need to send you to CMMC conferences. They need to send you to get your RP, your registered practitioner. You need to get and that's that's a good
starting point.
That's a good dip your toe in it. That is really just dipping a toe in it. So, but it's a good thing to have. So, get your RP, that'll dip your toe in it. Go for your CMMC certified practitioner, your CCP. That'll get you both in with both feet. Once you get that, I would say at least you don't have to become a CCA because there's some requirements to actually get your certification, your CCA certified assessor certification. Anyway, there's some actual requirements to participate on assessments and stuff. So, and a background check. A background check is okay. You can pass that. Well, most people probably pass that. In any case, get your CCP. Go to a CCA class. Go through the whole class. If you can get your CCA certification, that's great. But at least go to those classes, expose yourself to the CMMC ecosystem, right? By going to some of these conferences, and that's where you start getting some understanding. It's we say it's dangerous to get your CMMC advice online, and it is, with the exception that as long as you understand it's dangerous, it's good to go look at the discussions on Reddit and all the other places where you can go look at these discussions and see people's take on that. It helps inform you, right?
Attend the town halls.
Attend the town halls.
Free.
That's free. That's a big thing. Attend the town halls. They always go over all the latest things, all the things that are coming up. They tell you, all sorts of stuff. They cover, one of the things I covered is G code. They've had somebody on there to explain why G code should be classified as should be considered CUI.
If you're looking for maybe not the most authoritative take on things, but if you're looking for, what is generally accepted as best practice and most assessors will agree with, the town hall is a good place to look for some of that information.
It is. It's
Reddit, not always.
Reddit, not always.
Yeah.
You've got to take Reddit and things like that with a grain of salt because they're even people who tell you they're assessors. They might be an assessor, but they might be a brand new assessor, or they might be the kind of assessor that you don't really want doing your assessment.
An assessor is not the same thing as a C3PAO.
Right, an assessor is part of it.
So assessors aren't
on staff of the
necessarily
C3PAO.
handing out certificates. And they may have gotten their assessor, certification, but they may have not taken place in an assessment. Is that fair to say?
They'll have, yes, but I believe part of that requirement to get your certification is to take part in some assessments.
Okay, so maybe I'm wrong about that one.
But point is, even if you've maybe just taken part as a CCP, because as a CCP you can take part in assessments. So maybe you've taken part in a couple of assessments, but it's just taking part in assessment doesn't mean that you have really delved in and done a lot with that and understood real world environments because real world environments are a lot different than, thinking up here at 30,000 feet where you don't really touch any implementations, right? In any case, to go back to the question about Donald and his question. So, if you go to some of those CMMC conferences, take part in that CMMC Cyber AB town hall, and you get your CCP, stuff like that. Get some real good education. Then you can start figuring out how to really scope your environment, figure out what kind of information you have, what the scope is, what it should be, whether you need to do a small enclave or whether the only business you have is through, the Department of Defense, with CUI. So you can start there after that, but starting to implement without any of that knowledge is a recipe for disaster. The best thing is, if you want to get it done quicker, is to hire somebody to help you out. They can teach you and you can learn along the way. And that's great. You need to, because at the end of the day, you and your leadership will be the ones that the C3PO, that the assessor is asking questions of. If you have somebody helping you implement everything, they can be part of that conversation. But part of that conversation, not the only. They can't be answering all the questions for you. So they can be part of all the questions, I guess, but they can't necessarily be the only one answering the questions.
So one person can do it if given the proper resources, I think is the answer. So
that's exactly it, yes.
And the proper resources may take form in, if you're the junior admin doing all the IT stuff, then bringing in a outside consultant to kind of help shore up and direct you properly from a compliance perspective. Or it could be bringing in a properly vetted ESP or MSP or IT outsourcing company to take care of all the help tickets while you go get your proper credentials and learning done and training done, so that way you can drive the compliance paperwork and decisions. But to be the person doing all the help desk tickets, doing all the projects, and building a compliance program from scratch is kind of hard to ask anyone to do just by themselves, unless they're just a wonder boy or girl. But yeah, I mean, so, and then, always money is going to have to be spent. That's another resource as well. So
money's always going to have to be spent.
It can't be done with just the things that you guys have in place. There's going to have to be some money spent somewhere.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to be, a small amount. An assessment alone, it's tens of thousands of dollars. And then the readiness to get there, whether it's in, GRC platforms or cybersecurity services to check off some of those control boxes. Or, if you're can't do anything on premise and you need to, source some FedRAMP, tools and software, you're going to have the resources.
You'll have to have the resources. And, one of the things you mentioned is, again, going back to, leadership saying, Mr. IT guy, Mr. Quality guy, this is your baby. We need you to implement this. That's great. But I can tell you normally what happens is they're responsible for all of the, care and feeding of the information systems. They do all the IT, right? They take care of printers when they're not working, Outlook when it's broken, bad Wi-Fi signal, why can't I share my screen in Zoom, stuff like that. So if they expect you to do, they expect you to do all that, right? As an IT guy. So what has to be realized is that this is a full-time job. Implementing CMMC is a full-time job by itself. And even if you stretch it out over a long period of time, which it'll have to be if you're starting from scratch, it's still a full-time job. So what you said a minute ago, about, if you're busy fixing Outlook, and fixing printers and standing up new servers and stuff, where are you going to find the time to learn about CMMC, go to events, listen to the Cyber AB Town Hall, and implement all the things all 320 assessment objectives that you have to implement? Where are you going to find the time to do that? And the answer is you're not. So you have to have those resources, whatever form they take. There's going to have to be some more resources provided for you to be able to finish that. So it could be outside consultants come in and help you out. That's the best, easiest, quickest way to do that. Of course, you have to do your homework and find good ones. Or if everything has to be done all in house, you're going to have to get a lot of education, and you're going to have to make sure that your understanding of, 3.1.1 is really what they're looking for, because a lot of times an IT guy's understanding of one of the controls is not what the assessors, not what they're really getting at, not what the assessors are looking for, and not what the control is actually looking for. So you got to realize that it's a whole thing about, Active Directory user list. IT guy says, yeah, we got all of our users. It's right here in Active Directory, Well, that's part of it. That's a good part of it, but it's not all of it. So as long as you realize that stuff and realize that there's a lot of education there, you can do it on your own. But again, that's more resources being thrown at it. Resources, one way or the other, are going to have to be thrown at the problem.
So that's a great segue into our next piece. I wanted to highlight our free SPRS roadmap. So if you're out there and everything we've talked about today, evidence and all these controls and things you have to do, or, kind of making you feel overwhelmed and you feel like you want, a second look, or a gut check on, where you're at on your compliance journey, we can do that. It's free. It's about 90 minutes where we can help you understand three basic things: where you actually stand with your SBRS score, basically, where you're at on all 110 controls. That's what the SBRS score is. What gaps within those controls are putting you or your contracts at risk, and then kind of our first blush take on what a realistic path from where you are today to a more compliant spot in the future would might look like. So we can do that. We'll go through all 110 controls. And just kind of get your reporting on it, and then develop a just kind of written deliverable for you to take back and see how you might fill some of those gaps. So that's free. We've got the link down below, probably in the description is where it'll go if you want to take advantage of that. But I didn't want to spend too much time on it. Just throw it out there that is something that you can take advantage of if you want to.
Absolutely.
But I think that's all we have today. So if you have questions about what we covered, please reach out to us. We're here to help fast track your compliance journey. Please text, email, or call your questions. Call in your questions, and we'll answer them for free here on the podcast. You can find our contact information at CMMCComplianceGuide.com. Stay tuned for our next episode. Until then, stay compliant, stay secure, and make sure to subscribe.